So today our topic is on higher studies and job opportunities in the United States. As already shared, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist at Grand Valley State University. Just wanted to share some of my thoughts in the field in United States. So that just to gain some more insight into how some of the experience in the United States when it comes to psychology. So psychologists are healthcare professionals who are bound to legal and ethical standards of care. Just want to briefly share about that experience. When I talk about like legal, say for instance, if you have to be licensed. Like right now I'm in Michigan, so I have to be licensed in Michigan to practice here. Same way with ethical standards of care, during your education and training, we focus on what are some of your ethical, like for instance, if you meet with a student or a patient, if they experience any kind of suicidal thoughts, how we document that. And if you don't document it, what are some of the consequences? So there is a strong value on focusing on legal and ethical standard of care in the United States. Another important thing is collaboration with other healthcare professionals. So here, even in the setting I work with, I do collaborate with various professionals. I work with social workers. We have a nurse practitioner with our team that mainly focus on medication. I also work with psychiatrists. Also, mental health issues is highly tied into physical health too. So definitely it's really important to collaborate with physicians, medical providers in our clinical work here. So you can see here is a collaborative work with various healthcare professionals in the United States. So here to be a licensed psychologist, you have to be a PhD or a PsyD. In short, it is a broader degree. So just in a nutshell, PhD can be, if you're more interested in research, PhD can be a good option to consider. PsyD if you have more interest in clinical work. Always be mindful that even in PhD and PsyD, clinical work is heavily emphasized. Even in my clinical team, we have licensed psychologists from PhD and the PsyD program, because most of the training and education program really focus on clinical work. Education and training here, you have to do 4 to 7 years of education and training in psychology after your undergraduate degree. Most often it's 4 years if you have a master's degree, but average is 5 years of education and training after your undergraduate degree. I will also talk about my undergraduate and master's when we talk about education and training here. Then finally, the licensure. This is kind of really unique. I also had a link here, which I will provide this PowerPoint so you can have more details from that. But here, as a psychologist, you are required to have a state licensure. So each state has its own licensing requirement. So to practice in Michigan, that's one of the 50 states in the United States, I need to be licensed here. So for instance, if I have a client or patient from other state, like for instance, Chicago or other states, I'm unable to client from or patients from other states here. So what are some of the job opportunities?
After an hour, can I call you after an hour?
Participants, kindly mute yourself so that it doesn't create much disturbance.
I was also in
Thank you.
between adding some more who joined. So what are some of the job opportunities in the United States? Um, so there are several, like if you take any field in the United States, you can see a psychologist or someone who works in the mental health field is integrated into the system. For instance, universities, one of the institutions that hire counseling, psychologists, social workers, psychiatrists, nurse practitioners in the team. So I work at Grand Valley State University. It's a counseling center where we have close to 15 to 20 clinicians and close to 8 to 10 trainees with our team. And the major goal of those counseling centers is to provide mental health services for the students who are attending the university. So every colleges, every universities in United States has a counseling center with all the team members in that particular center. The second common is schools. Most schools here in the United States have a counselor with their staff. There is also a school psychology program too. It's a doctoral program that focuses on mainly for clinicians who want to work with in schools, mainly elementary, middle school, and high school. The third one is hospital setting. I already mentioned here we collaborate with various professionals here, and every hospital has a licensed clinical provider here. And most often, mental health and physical health is really related. In fact, for instance, for anxiety, like long-term anxiety can contribute to a lot of physical issues like digestive issues, frequent headaches, migraine headaches. It's highly tied, like chest pain, high blood pressure. So it's really important for hospital setting to collaborate with mental health clinicians. The fourth one is like independent or private practice. So if you are licensed in United States, you can independently practice. The thing is, you have to manage everything by yourself. For instance, most often it goes to medical insurance. You have to work directly with the medical insurance, or you have to hire someone to help you with that process. So independent practice is also really commonly practiced. So some of my colleagues also work in private practices. So in addition to their job at the university, they also love to practice outside of that. Another employees are government and VA medical centers. VA is Veterans Affairs. That's one of the largest employer too. Not largest, but they also hire a lot of psychologists with their team too. Also, a lot of businesses and organizations will also hire psychologists. So bottom line, like if you take any field within any institutions within in the US system, they always hire. And also based on my familiarity in India and Kerala too, there are a lot of opportunities in hospitals, a lot of private practice, and also governmental setting hire clinical mental health providers. So in this presentation, I'm mainly focusing on doctoral program, but also be mindful that for psychology, you need to get a doctorate to be a licensed psychologist. But for a master's in social work, so if you are in master's in social work, you can be also a licensed clinical social work program, but you have to be trained in that. Most often here to get a license in social work, you have to do 2 years of, that's a traditional 2 years of social work program. Then you have to practice. In addition to that, you have to practice for 2 more years under a licensed provider to provide services. So in a way, even social worker has to do at least 4 years of training. education and training in the field. So one thing that is really common over here is the role of medical insurance. You can see most often, most of the medical, not just mental health, medical is provided through medical insurance. So that's something really common over here. Fortunately, as part of the university, I don't have to worry about insurance, but if you are in a hospital setting, private practice, government, business, it's really important as a clinician to work with various insurance providers. There will be like 10, 15 insurance providers that you collaborate with. Before I move on to next one, I have a few here to join. Let me admit them all. Awesome. Passion and interest in psychology. This is, so just briefly about some of my experience. So I did my undergraduate in K College, Mananam. Maybe one of my most privileged and most memorable experiences in Kerala. I definitely, when some of you are watching this PowerPoint, this presentation, even when I haven't even thought about psychology, studying psychology in other countries or other states. I can definitely say that some of my experiences with my teachers, I remember Chamatrayachan, he was the HOD, head of the department at that time, encouraging us to explore and go out of state and explore psychology. That stayed with me. And I always share that, and Radhika, Miss Matthew Sir, they all really motivated us to explore. And the relationship with your teachers kind of so powerful too, to explore and expand your field of psychology. I also really want to acknowledge a lot of, which I also encourage you to consider those who already graduated from our program. I remember talking with my seniors, those who graduated. The connection you have with your seniors is really powerful and helpful, and also your classmates. I also did a lot of programming with Dr. Angel Thomas and other students, classmates during my program here. So definitely that undergraduate experience was kind of the key moment in helping me to increase my passion and interest in psychology. And that in fact helped me to explore, okay, I like psychology, what in the field that I like psychology. In fact, that's why I went into holistic psychological counseling in Bangalore University. So I did my master's in Bangalore. So there was a college, Mountfort College. They specialized in providing holistic health and mental health counseling. So I did my master's there. So what are those two experiences, my undergraduate experiences and also my master's experiences, played a significant role in my passion and interest in psychology. So what are your unique interests? This is something I highly encourage whoever in this presentation, hoping that take some time to reflect on what are my unique interests in when you think about psychology. So I always, this is something I always encourage to think about internal versus external focus. So this is one of the common questions I always hear. So what is out there? So when in the beginning, when I explored psychology field, I always look into what is out there, then go from there. But in United States, the field of psychology is so diverse. So whatever you have interest, you will be able to find a field. So one thing I highly encourage you to reflect on is, what are your passion and interest in the psychology field? I know in India and Kerala, the opportunities are a bit more diverse now when compared to when I joined psychology. So at that time in NG University, there was only K College and UC College Oliver has this program. So I have limited opportunity at that time, but now I can see there are several opportunities, several colleges, and a bit more diverse in terms of opportunities in the field of psychology. Um, but if you're thinking about US, it's a bit more broader, it's more developed field here. So highly encourage you to take some time to reflect on, okay, what are my passion in the field of psychology? Then also explore, what are out there, which I will briefly talk about a few things you can look into. The second thing I highly encourage you to consider is to focus on generalist versus specialist focus. So for me, I'm a generalist. So one of the reasons I did that because I really like different field within clinical psychology. So I'm a clinical psychologist. So I really like to work in anxiety, depression, eating disorder, trauma. So I have that focus. So you can also see some of you maybe have a lot more diverse interest in working. So for me, clinically, I really like that experience of working in various clinical issues versus like specialists. Some people really like specialists. Even though I'm a generalist, I do have special interest in certain clinical diagnosis like anxiety and depression is one of my favorite. And also I lead a lot of programming in that area. I do lead um, close to 12 groups just in depression and and anxiety because of my interest in the field. And specialist is, for instance, if a patient comes to me for an eating disorder treatment, even though I am familiar with the diagnosis, I can diagnose someone, but for treatment, I may refer that particular patient to someone who is specialized in eating disorder. This is also true for any other areas too. Like for instance, if someone has a significant issue related to a specific phobia, I may not be the right person. So here, the ethical and legal guidelines is really strict. Like for instance, if you are not trained in a particular area, you cannot practice in that particular area. Like for instance, I cannot treat someone with eating disorder. One of the reason is I'm not trained. I can diagnose someone, but to treat someone, to provide long-term treatment, I'm not trained in that particular area. So here, it's a bit more strict um, in the United States. So it's good to look into what are, like if you have a specialist interest, that's great. So you can find programs that focused on that specialist area. Another, like if you have interest in neuropsychology, then select a program that focus on neuropsychology. Don't look into generalist. So that's why it's really important to look into what is your passion and interest. So it's good to reflect on the generalist versus specialist focus in psychology. Another way is to look into your interest areas in population. Like, do you like children? Do you like adolescents? Do you like adults? And I always say I have 2 kids. I love kids, but I don't like to work clinically with kids. So it's really important to look into, what are your unique interest in working. Some people like to work in all children, adults, and adults. They can be specialists. But you can also specialize based on particular population. Some like to work on older population, geriatric population. So you can actually look into even specific, you can be a generalist within children, generalist with older adults or middle age or adolescent or younger adults. So you can actually a bit more have a specific focus in based on population too. Some helpful tips I can be helpful to understand your passion and interest is take some quality time to reflect on your interest. Share your interest with a teacher or a professor or a psychology professional. And also, I'm more than happy. This is, I have already provided several help to my friends, and some of them are referred to me. I'm more than happy to talk with any one of you here. If you want to explore and just to explore your passion, I'm more than happy to talk with you. I can provide you my email or contact information. You can get it from Angel too. So if you have any interest and if you want to process that experience, don't hesitate to connect with me. More than happy to help you in that regard. This I'm not going through each one of this, but just wanted to highlight some of the diverse areas within psychology that you can consider. Before I do that, let me admit others. Some of them are. So these are few field in psychology. And I just want to highlight that even for each one, it's very diverse. Even within clinical psychology, you can specialize and go in different areas. I know a lot of clinical psychology, I know a lot of colleagues in clinical psychology, they are specialized only in OCD, obsessive compulsive behavior. So even within each field, there's a lot more diversity. For instance, psychology, health psychologists, industrial, sports psychology, and you can see a PsyD program or a doctoral program based on those specific fields too. There's also a link there that you can explore even other careers within psychology. So I'm also sharing this from my own experience in understanding doctoral programs in the United States. I always used online exploration. So during when I applied to United States so I joined the program in 2006. So I did online exploration from 2003 to 2005 and mainly used the online resources to explore doctoral programs. I didn't use any agencies. So most of the information I share here mainly applicable to psychology. So just want to let you know that I am not familiar with other fields, but definitely for psychology, you don't have to be connected with an agency. You can always use an online resources for the doctor programs in the United States. Now, one of the reasons is all the information to join or get admission to a program in the United States will be in their website, very organized. So it's easy to utilize the psychology from through online exploration. So one thing I highly recommend, this I always share, make sure when you do the online exploration, whatever the doctoral program in psychology, it has to be an APA accredited training or education program. So American Psychology Association training program. Even Grand Valley State University, that's the place I work. It is an APA accredited training program. So that APA, it's kind of a standard. So if it's accredited by American Psychology Association, for sure we will expect certain standards. They are evaluated every, I think, 5 years, 4 to 5 years, I forgot. I think it's 4 years. So even the accreditation, you have to continue to show a team that you have continued to have that higher standard of education and training. So this is the first thing I highly encourage. So if you look for a specific program, make sure it is an APA accredited education and training program. If it is that, then that is going to be a great program. The second one is state versus private university. So from the name of my university, you might have not realized that that is a state university, Grand Valley State University. most often, the quality of education and training in a state university and private university are great. Um, and the only difference, which based on my own experience, I saw is state university have lower tuition when compared to private universities. Um, so like for it can be really the difference can be pretty high too, based on which private university it is. So but if most often state universities will have lower tuition, and due to that reason, um, sometimes it may be a bit more tough to get into a state university. But it just based on my experience, most often Indian students are pretty dedicated, hardworking, and most often based on their academic, which I will talk briefly later, most often can get into a state university. But again, there are also private universities that are expensive, but it's actually worth looking into. One of the reason is you may be able to get an assistantship, a financial assistantship, graduate assistantship, or a teaching assistantship when you get into the program, which I will talk about it later. Cost of living, state and city, which I highly encourage you to consider, do play a role, which state and city you go. Like for instance, if you go to California, that is the city, San Francisco in California, the cost of living there can be way higher when compared to where I went, Dayton, Ohio. I did my doctor program at Wright State University. Wright State is the Wright brothers. I hope some of you will be, maybe all of you will be familiar with the Wright brothers. So Wright State University, the Dayton, Ohio, their expense was the cost of living is slightly lower. So it's actually good to look into what is the cost of living in that particular state and city. When you reach there, it's really important to talk with someone who like with me, or someone who is familiar with United States, or even the university international office. So every university has an international office. They can also help you with understanding the cost of living in that particular state. Then opportunities for assistantship. This is that's why some of you may be thinking about coming here or trying to explore options. Highly encourage you to look into. Sometimes you may be able to get an assistantship to do your program here. So for me, when I applied, I got half tuition scholarship for a year. So I got 50%. But after during my second semester, I'm able to get a graduate assistantship. So I was a graduate assistant at the international office, and that actually paid for my tuition, and I also got a stipend. And also during my program, I was also clinically working outside. So the benefit of Psy program was, in addition to the program, every year I rotate in different job. Like I worked in hospital setting, I worked in university counseling centers, I worked in community mental health centers. So I got diverse training opportunities, and I also got a stipend. If you take some time, there are a lot of opportunities for assistantship there. The one thing it is not guaranteed, so that's why sometimes really you take a little bit of risk. I did take some risk in terms of coming here. Unfortunately, I was fortunate enough to get an assistantship that covered everything for me, except for my first semester where I have to pay like half tuition. But overall it's really expensive, but that really helped me. There are a lot of teaching assistantships available. The PhD has a lot more options available. Like for instance, if you have an interest, a research interest, and if you're able to identify a college and a faculty that specialize in that particular topic, you may be able to even come here, may be able to know whether you get assistantship even before coming here. So I really encourage you to reflect and focus on that assistantship opportunities. Because it is really expensive to study in United States. And if you're able to get assistantship, that can be a great privilege to study here. Again, one of the reason I talked about passion interest early on is when you see, like for instance, if you explore some of the training programs, I highly encourage you to start from your passion and interest, and then look into what are some of the training and education opportunities available in that particular university. Like for instance, I did my program at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. So I really felt connected to the training and education model. And definitely the training was more generalist. And they also said, I will get opportunity to work in different settings, which I really liked. You know, you can work in a counseling center, community mental health, hospital setting. And if you have an interest in neuropsychology, you can do that too, which I like that aspect. So neuropsychology is one of my interest area too. Even though later on I moved into more college mental health among college students, but neuropsychology was also one of my interest area too. Also, I looked at what are the expertise of my teachers and professors. Okay, I have this interest. I mainly focused on neuropsychology at that time. So there were like 3 professors who were expert in that particular area. So that also motivated me to focus on Wright State University. So during my, this is my 5 guidelines to select a program: accredited university, state, private. And one of the main reasons state private is the cost of living and expense. Look for opportunity for assistantship, and also both from your passion and interest in exploring. Education, this is one of the common questions I hear from there. Let me add more. I just want to say, I hear this all the time. Always be mindful. All your education experiences, work experiences, volunteer experiences, things you're doing right now are really valid and relevant in United States. In fact, so education, I did my undergraduate in psychology, and most often one of the benefit of our education in India and Kerala is most often we do use most often the research and theories from Western, which I have disagreements too, but still we do do a lot of education, like from education. Our curriculum is based on research studies from US and other countries. So that kind of helps. Second reason is you are bringing some unique experiences, right? That's what even in US they look for, diversity in thoughts and ideas. So having education and cultural experiences from other countries actually helpful, not just for them, but also your classmates. Your diverse thoughts, ideas is kind of really powerful and helpful here too. So one of the differences is the education. It's that you can always convert our grade into a grade here. So in US, there is a grading system. So most often you have to convert the percentage to grade here. And there are like credential evaluation services here. And I'm able to transfer some of the credit. What that means is if you have taken certain classes, you don't have to do that class over here. So I did my master's, so I'm able to transfer at least 10, I think 10 classes, close to 10 classes here. That was pretty like 10 classes means that is 30 credit hours. So I was able to transfer the credits I took in India. The only thing you have to be mindful is when you come here, it is important to bring your the syllabus that includes all the detailed information, and you can submit all those and they will be able to transfer. So whatever you have during my undergraduate and graduate program can actually transfer to um, to the credits here. The one thing to be mindful here is uh, there are certain university has their own policies. So the Wright State University, the one I did, they were open to transfer the credits. So if you do that, it's really important to talk with the faculty staff, the university are applying, all the international office to gather more information. Again, work experiences. This is one I really love. And in fact, it really helped my education experience in the United States. So after my undergraduate degree, so after my master's, I worked in an inpatient clinic in Agape. Agape Counseling Center was in Pathanamthitta. So I also did worked in a de-addiction center. I also taught undergraduate students nursing psychology class for nursing students. Those three experiences were important. And what I did also did a lot of volunteer activities through the alumni association at K College Mamana. So those experiences was excellent during my interview with them. So before you get admitted, after you submit all the application, and if they accept the application, they will do an interview with you. And I can confidently say that my volunteer experiences and work experiences was really helpful during my interview. It was a 3-hour interview with 2 different faculty. So those experiences are really helpful during my interview with them. And later on during my class, I was able to bring those experiences during my class experience. Like for instance, if you work with anxiety or a depression, you can see there's a lot more similarity. And it's also important to look into how some of the cultural values play a role. So having those diverse viewpoints is really valuable for my classmates, for my teachers, and also helpful for me to understand anxiety and depression from this cultural context, US cultural context. And again, just want to let you know that US is also really diverse. So there's a lot more cultural values and differences even within US too. So just wanted this is the only goal of this slide, is to emphasize that your education and your work experiences are going to be key and important when you study here, or if you plan to come here. So it is a valid and relevant for your education and work experience here. Some of the things I will like to emphasize is that there can be a lot of language and cultural barriers in the beginning. And this is one of the reasons I recommend to consider doctoral program. One thing I highly encourage you to, like in the beginning, there's always that language, cultural. Also, it's a new place. I didn't know anyone when I came here. The food, the money, transportation, social support. It was interesting. I always share now with whoever I talk with, if they plan to come to US, or if they already got admitted and they're traveling. One thing I always share is make sure you have basic needs packed with you, like food, money for transportation. See whether you know someone there that you can connect with. So what I did was I packed all books. That's all I have, because that's what you're coming here for, education, right? But sometimes the struggle can be, because you have a lot of resources here, books. Like I didn't buy any books. I always got all of my books from the library, because every time it's new research, you have access to all the online resources here, latest studies. So you don't need any books here. Just when you come here, it's really important to have that basic needs met. But I just wanted to share based on my experience, after doing my doctoral program here for 6 years, I was very confident to get a job, to go for an interview. That's because that's how they train you. It was so anxiety provoking in the beginning, but I can say with confidence that the training you receive here, you feel confident to work in the United States, because that's how you provide training. Like that's how the training you get from here. Um, in the beginning, you experience a lot of difficulty managing communication, commonly in daily activities. But one thing I can confidently say, that your worldview will also expand. I always share that I kind of understood my own experience and my cultural experience when I came to the United States, because I started seeing it from a different lens. So one thing I highly encourage, and most often international students do that. So I have 3 classmates from India. So we have 25 students in our class, and we did our program together. 4 were international students from India, and we have several other international students from other countries too. But all 4 of us are here in the United States. So 3 of us are working in university counseling centers. And that one of the reason is still that education piece. I have access to library, have connection, like you can have diverse experience, and one work as a faculty in one of the colleges in the United States. So one of the reasons I say that is, in the beginning you have transition, but the more you interact here, then you function independently. You understand the culture, you navigate it really better. You feel confident and competent in doing it. So I always like to say, you may not love all the differences in the new culture, but the one thing I can guarantee is that you will learn how to navigate. In fact, it kind of helps you understanding, like exposure to different culture can actually help you expand some of your worldviews. So that's all from me today. I'm open to questions.
Now, thank you, sir. So now the forum is up for question and answer session. Participants, kindly drop your questions in the chat box, or you may please unmute yourselves. You can ask your questions through the chat box too. So can you please drop your questions, if any?
Dr. Abraham Epen.
Yes.
Can you hear me? So Father Joshi. It was a very informative and very insightful and resourceful and very simple session, which I hope that the student community will surely benefit from this session. I extend my sincere appreciation to Dr. Abraham Epen. It's a simple question to me, from me, whether the Indian students, especially the majority of the students, are doing their graduation, the participants. In what way they have to undergo their graduation studies if they are looking ahead to obtain a doctoral degree? Because the system in Kerala, maybe they compartmentalize the system of education.
Yes.
Where the semester system is going on. There is no continuity between the subjects. If you really kindle your passion for the subject, in what way we have to approach the subject psychology? And one more thing, is there any availability of financial resources, or the scholarship is available for the meritorious students for pursuing their either master's or doctor program at US? Thank you.
Hoping that the first question is really relevant and important. I'm hoping that I can answer. If not, let me know. One thing I noticed here in the United States is it's really flexible and open, and they really help you to expand your passion and interest. Like for instance, in India, unfortunately, like since my master's was in holistic psychological counseling, I'm unable to do an MPhil in clinical psychology. Sometimes there was a lot more rigidity. Maybe it might have changed now, but it's okay for me to doctorate in clinical psychology in the United States. So when you come here, the syllabus, everything is established by the university and that particular department and by the faculty. And most often they will personalize those education based on your passion. Like for instance, I do had a lot of interest in group work, group therapy. So in addition to the classes I have taken, I'm able to do it's called direct study in my program. In addition to the classes I was taken, I was able to do a direct study in group work. So here it's a bit more open and flexible in helping you do that. That's why one of the reasons when you explore online resources, it's really important to look into, okay, what are some of the programs they offer and go based on that experiences. So most often it will be more flexible to help understand the unique passion and interest of that particular person. The second question is the assistantships, as I mentioned earlier. So there are teaching assistantships and graduate assistantship. So I just want to clarify graduate assistantship. So most often graduate assistantship is, say for instance, I was a graduate assistant for the international office. So one of my responsibility was organize the fall orientation. I had to work for 20 hours a week. So most often graduate assistantship, you can apply early, or when you reach there, you can apply for those. Those information will be in their website, but all the universities and colleges have graduate assistantship opportunities or teaching assistantship opportunities or research assistantship opportunities. That's why like PhD psychology can be a good route in that way, because if you have a research interest and one particular faculty or staff is doing that particular research area, you can actually talk with that professor and see whether you can join, what are some of the research opportunities available. So it's more like directly communicating with the particular department, and the faculty staff plays a role. So for me, even before I came to United States for my program, I already connected with the staff, the faculty from that department to explore some of my assistantship opportunities. So when I came to United States, what I did was I looked into graduate assistantship opportunities. I directly talked with the international office. There was an opportunity available, then I was able to apply and able to get that particular assistantship. It's more like exploring with that particular department for the assistantship.
Thank you for the information.
Thank you, Acha.
Thank you, sir. Participants, please note the feedback form is provided in the chat box. So we have 2 more questions. Shall we move on?
Yes.
So the first question is, sir, could you please say the procedures to apply for direct doctorate in USA without master's, scholarship, etc.?
Great.
And the question is asked by Nisha.
Yeah, just want to share that thank you, Maria. So I had, if you have depends upon the program, but the program I applied at Wright State University, you are able to apply without a master's. If you are an undergraduate program, you are able to apply for the doctor program here. One thing I highly, and here, even in my undergraduate, in my doctorate program, there was student, doesn't have to be psychology. That's one of the unique thing in USA is, doesn't have to be psychology. I have a lot of my friends in different field. Like one of my friend was in biology major. One of my colleague was has an undergraduate degree in nutrition. So it's more like when you come to the doctorate program, they have an extensive interview process and everything. So you can directly apply after your undergraduate program to United States, but also it depends upon which university you're applying. So you do have that opportunity to directly apply for the doctoral program after your undergraduate degree. The only struggle is you may be doing longer. So you may have to do like 5 to 7 or 5 to 8. The benefit I had with my master's program is I was able to transfer some credits. So I was able to do my program in 6 years. But if you are directly coming with an undergraduate degree, then you may have more longer. But again, be mindful that each university is different. So based on your need, it can be very, it can be different too. So there are some doctor program you do need a master's, some doesn't need. So that's why you have to start with your passion and interest. Then you look for doctoral programs that takes undergraduate student. Then you look for programs like that. Scholarship, that's why every program has their own scholarship. Like for instance, when I applied to Wright State University, I also applied 4 universities. Wright State is the place that gave me scholarship, so that's why I went to Wright State University. One of my top interests was I need to get some form of scholarship, but they were able to offer me half scholarship. So they will let you know right from the beginning. But I'm also proactive in exploring some of the opportunities there in scholarship. So you have to be a bit more proactive in exploring that option.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to the next question. The next question is from Rennie Chaco. Can the Indians apply for masters in the USA? Can you suggest some universities? I mean names.
So definitely. So that's why I said, if you're an undergraduate student, you can apply. So I did apply with my master's, and it is valid and relevant in United States. Yes, you can apply with an undergraduate or a master's degree. With an undergraduate degree, I think to be mindful, each university has their own requirements. So it's really important to look into what are some of their requirements. Some programs do need a master's. So it depends upon the university, but definitely they love to have people from other countries. So just they love to have diverse learning opportunities. So they do look for students from other countries. So in my class, I had someone from Uganda. I have from India, China. So there are students from other countries too, which made my learning experience great. My roommates were from, one of my roommates was from Pakistan, China, from other African countries, Latin America. So as an international student, I was able to interact with others. So they love to have diverse students from other countries. And most often Indians do pretty good. I just want to share that based on my own experience, Indian students do really good in United States. It's just an initial transition, but after that, Indian students tend to do really well in US, just based on my own experience and also my friends' experience. All my friends who did my program together did get a job in the United States. Also, I'm a supervisor here. I also see Indian students coming here for internship who do really well here.
Thank you, sir. If you have any more queries, you may please drop down your questions, or you may please unmute yourselves, or else we'll move on to the end of the session. So we have one more question. Sir, is 3-year degree valid in US? If not, could you please suggest some 1-year programs?
No, 3-year degree, yes, it is valid in US. So undergraduate degree. So that's why, like, I'm talking about psychology. So psychology, they are looking into, one thing I highly encourage is to undergraduate degree, have some work experience. That's why I said I'm able to transfer my undergraduate and my master's to United States. It is, some people say, I don't know whether it's applicable to other majors, but for psychology, undergraduate degree is valid in USA, and could please suggest some 1-year programs. There is no 1-year program. So most often, those can be certificate programs, but if your goal is to work in the United States, so you have to have some clinical experiences. So it's really important to, one thing I highly encourage is, one of the reason I highly emphasize doctoral program is you need to get experience working here as a clinical psychologist. One of the reason is you need to interact, you need to understand the diagnosis, the ethical, legal issues, and also just experience clinically working. So it's really important to, if your goal is to stay in the United States or work longer, it's really important to do the doctoral program because of that extensive training. Any reflection about
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Maria.
continue, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, and this next one is any reflection about postdoctoral opportunities. So this is where because here, after you complete your doctorate, so after my doctorate, I have to be licensed for an year. I have to be worked under a licensed provider before I get my licensure. So there are a lot of licensing requirements. That's a good question because of the licensing requirement. So after my, even admission to a doctor program doesn't guarantee that you graduate. So even within the program, there's a lot of standards, like you have to pass comprehensive clinical exam. Then finally, that's kind of major thing to pass that comprehensive clinical exam. The final one is to get internship. Internship, you compete nationally. You can apply anywhere, so you compete nationally. After you graduate, you still have to practice under a licensed psychologist to get your hours. So depends upon state, it varies. So if you have your doctoral degree in India, the struggle is to get a supervision under a licensed provider in the United States. So that can be a struggle because you don't have any educational training in the United States. So most often you may have to come here, does some practice under a licensed provider, then you can apply for the licensure. After your licensure, you can practice in the field. What is the scopes in neuropsychology? It's a great field. If you love neuropsychology, come, like there are a lot more opportunities. You may also have a lot of research opportunities in neuropsychology too. Most often, a lot of the program, research-oriented program, have a lot of research assistantships. Akshan was talking about the opportunities for assistantship. Research assistantship can be great with neuropsychology. That's also highly paid field in US too. They also do a lot of assessment. I do have assessment. I love neuropsychology. My dissertation was on neuropsychology too. You can do a lot of assessments, like most often any trauma, brain trauma, traumatic brain injury, they do have to do neuropsych assessment in hospital setting and rehab centers. So that's a really great field in the US. There's one question, Ebo, I forgot to mention. Can you suggest some universities? That's one of the reasons I talked here. There are tons. I had 60 universities in my list to select from. Just wanted to let you know that just focus on your passion. Then I can help. It was Rennie. I can help you with that process in selecting. Like in the beginning, I can show you how to fish. Teach how to fish, then you can do the fishing. So by yourself. So look into your passion, and then we go from there. So there are a lot of universities in the United States, but look into your passion and then use the online resources to gather. If you ask me, definitely my program I love. So every university, Ohio State University, Wright State University, Stanford University, a lot of universities here, there are programs. Those are great programs. The only thing to be mindful is it has to be an APA accredited training program. Scope of industrial, how to be a special. Yes, education, special education. Actually, there, even within psychology, I said PhD and PsyD. There's also a doctorate in education with a focus on psychology. So one of my community mental health supervisor had a EDD. He had a doctorate in education, but highly specialized in clinical work. So you can actually have a doctorate in education with a specific focus on psychology in the United States. Definitely, that's a great field. Industrial organization psychology, definitely that is also that's also a field. Even some of my faculty staff at Wright State University were also organizational psychologists too. They actually provided training in various organizations. They consult with you to increase the productivity. Like for instance, if they notice there is issues within an organization, they will hire an organizational psychologist to help improve the productivity of that particular area. So definitely, so if you have those specialized interests, that's why I mentioned earlier, definitely look for programs in industrial organization psychology. And also go more specific. Okay, what in the industrial organization psychology you like? Because there are a lot of schools and programs do offer industrial psychology. So definitely, any field I talked early is like you have opportunities in the United States. One of the reasons is it's a highly developed field. One thing it was easy for me to navigate after I became a licensed psychologist. It's easy for me to navigate here because you have a lot more options and opportunities here. And definitely industrial psychology, neuropsychology, sports psychology, all those are great fields in the United States and a lot of job opportunities here.
Maybe a last question. By doing a master's in psychology or in specialization in some of the areas of the psychology, whether with that master's degree, an individual can get a placement or somewhere appointed, get any job, either in private or in public sector in US.
Correct. That's a good question, Acha. I didn't talk about other type of like, so you can do a master's in psychology and you can be a licensed professional counselor here, an LPC, licensed professional counselor, and you can actually work independently based on that. Same way, you can also become a limited licensed psychologist, LLP here. The issue with LLP is you have to be licensed by a psychologist or a provider. So after your master's, you can be an LLP, but most often people take LPC, licensed professional counselor. One of the reasons is after you get licensed, it doesn't have to be licensed by a provider. Yes, you can practice here after your master's here. The struggle happens when like insurance, the billing, although there are other issues going on, but you have a passion, yes, you can practice as a master's. If you have taken that program in the US, yes, you can.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we have one more question, the scope for forensic psychology.
Yes, I personally don't know. I'm familiar with industrial and sports, other, there is no doubt like forensic psychology. It's like if you take any psychology field, there's a website it's called ONIT. ONIT, if you Google ONIT, you can see that's actually in the United States. If you take any psychology field, you can see it has an positive outlook. That means it's a highly needed field. That field is going to be increasing in the future. And definitely forensic psychology is a good field. And if you like criminology, criminal justice, it's a great field to be in. And if you have an undergraduate degree in criminology, it doesn't have to be psychology, criminology, you can apply for forensic psychology program here. And even if you don't have a criminology background, still you can directly apply for the forensic psychology program. And definitely scope is pretty high. forensic neuropsychology, and those are also highly paid field too. Can you tell about abnormal psychology and programs based on it? Abnormal psychology. So that's where the clinical psychologist. So I'm a clinical psychologist to diagnosis. Definitely the you have to study. I think any psychology doctor programming abnormal psychology is you have to learn that particular class, abnormal psychology. Most often it's related to the clinical psychology field. GRE mandatory for seeking high studies? Yes, actually it is not just for international students. For all of you have to take GRE psychology. And also some universities, they do need GRE psychology, GRE general and GRE psychology. Wright State University actually required both GRE psychology and GRE general. So all the doctoral programs here do need a GRE. I haven't seen any programs without GRE. There may be, but majority of the programs, I will say all the programs do require a GRE. So exception is for the TOEFL, test of English as a foreign language. There can be an exception there, but most often international students have to take TOEFL, test of English as a foreign language. You can get exceptions there. Some programs say if you have studied in an English-speaking university, or if you have done your exams and assignments in English, then you don't need a TOEFL, but GRE is required for all.
Do we have any more questions, or shall we move on to the end of the session?
Also would like to share, I know, feel free to contact. I have my email ID here. I love to help in terms of connecting you with resources and providing. Please don't hesitate to contact me too. This is my email ID, epenA@gbsc.edu. Please don't hesitate to check in with me. I'm more than happy to help you with direction. If you have any questions, email me. I will call or email you back if you have any questions.
Thank you, sir. So we'll move on to the end of this, assuming we have no more questions. So thank you, sir. That was indeed informative. Gratitude is the healthiest of all human emotions. The more you express gratitude for, the more likely you will have even more gratitude to express. Now, let me call upon Ms. Manna Sara Verghese, a second-year BSc Psychology, for the vote of thanks.
Hello, Maria. Am I audible?
Yes, Manna. Yes, Manna.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Honorable Spokesperson, Dr. Abraham Epen, Beloved Principal, Father Joshi Tiramguri, Vice Principal, Dr. Verghese Anthony, our Department Head, Dr. Angel Thomas, respected teachers, and all my dear friends. A very good morning to one and all. It is my great honor and pleasure to be chosen to deliver the vote of thanks on this auspicious occasion. First and foremost, I would like to thank our Almighty God for giving us this opportunity to organize a webinar series despite the present COVID-19 pandemic. Even during this crucial and threatening situation, we experienced His protection and providence for the last couple of months. And I'm sure the dark phase will definitely pass away. Let's hope and pray for the same. Next, I extend my sincere gratitude to our resource person, Dr. Abraham Epen, for enlightening us. The webinar was really an informative, inspiring, and motivating session, especially for us, the aspiring psychologists. I'm sure everyone will agree with me. I presume everyone who has attended the session would have cleared all their worries and doubts regarding their higher education and future endeavors. And it was greatly helpful. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to our principal, Father Joshi Tiramguri, Without his support and guidance, this webinar would not have been fruitful. Thank you, Father. I also time to thank our Vice Principal, Dr. Varghese Anthony, for his support even in his absence. Thank you, sir. Next, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to our HOD, Dr. Angel Thomas. If it was not for her, this event would not have been a great success. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I also take this opportunity to thank the coordinators of IQAC, Sushil sir, and Joint Coordinator Anu ma'am for making this event a great success. Thank you. Next, I would like to thank the coordinators of this webinar, Mr. Sijo P. Jacob, Assistant Professor of KCMT, and Ms. Catherine Mariam Sabel, Assistant Professor KCMT, and all the other teachers and psychology department who have worked hard to make this event a memorable one. Thank you, teachers. Finally, I would like to thank everyone, every participant who have attended this session, and thank you very much for your valuable presence and attention throughout the webinar. Once again, thank you all and have a nice and blessed day.
Thank you, Manna. Participants, kindly fill in the feedback forms carefully and make sure that you enter the details with precision. I repeat, the name and email ID to be entered carefully. So now we have come to the end of the first session of our webinar series. Hope you all have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.